Support for NPR comes from this station and from the law firm Cooley LLP, with offices in the U.S., Europe, and Asia. Cooley advises entrepreneurs, investors, financial institutions, and established companies around the world where innovation meets the law. And from Subaru, introducing the 2023 Solterra, an all-electric zero-emissions SUV with the standard capability of symmetrical all-wheel drive. Learn more at Subaru.com/Solterra.
WNYC's Winter Fund Drive is happening now. We took a risk and cut the length of this drive in half, but our financial goal remains the same as a full-length drive, to raise all the money we need to fund the news and programs you rely on. We can only succeed if you take action right now. So please, help us raise all the money in half the time. Donate at WNYC.org or call 888-376-WNYC.
WNYC supporters include the New York Community Trust. Listeners can champion the causes they care about for generations through charitable gifts and their wills with the New York Community Trust. Learn more at thetrust.nyc.
Tomorrow on Morning Edition, hear about a new study that suggests climate change is making back-to-back hurricanes more common, which could make it tougher for coastal communities to recover. Tune in for that and more on Morning Edition on 93.9 FM or AM 820. You can live stream it too at WNYC.org. For the rest of this evening, the clouds are going to gradually blow away, low around 32 tonight. Tomorrow, mostly sunny with a high near 45. Rain possible tomorrow night, low 42. Again, a chance of rain on Thursday. It's going to get warm again, high near 56.
This is WNYC FM, HD, and AM, New York.
In Afghanistan, the Taliban do not tolerate dissent, and their warnings have become tougher. Speak out, you go to jail.
This is an ongoing trend that clearly shows that the Taliban are accountable to no one.
Also on the show, in Turkey, people are scrambling to get their buildings inspected for earthquake safety.
Uyuyamıyorum zaten geceleri, yani deprem olduğundan beri.
This woman says ever since the earthquake, she can't sleep. Building owners know that safety inspections could mean their properties get condemned or demolished. I'm Marco Werman, and bureaucrats across the globe losing access to dance videos and comedy sketches.
Your time left to watch TikTok is TikToking down.
Plus, the mayor of Kyiv counts the months.
One long day. This year is one long day.
Those stories and more today here on The World.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Jack Speer. The Supreme Court heard arguments today against President Biden's student loan debt forgiveness plan. With a conservative majority and pointed questioning, the relief this administration has promised to borrowers looks to be in jeopardy. Here's NPR's Sequoia Carrillo.
In arguments lasting more than 3 hours, the justices heard from 2 lawsuits against President Biden's plan to cancel up to $20,000 in federal student loan debt for millions of qualifying Americans. Conservative justices repeatedly questioned the Education Department's claimed legal authority to discharge federal student loan debt. The questioning also signaled that the court may use this case as a way to outline limitations on unilateral executive action. There were some questions on standing, or whether or not the plaintiffs could prove they were the right ones to be suing. A decision is not expected until late June or early July. Sequoia Carrillo, NPR News.
Secretary of State Antony Blinken is warning China not to provide Russia with weapons. And he's trying to woo former Soviet states in Central Asia to help keep up the pressure on Moscow. More from NPR's Michelle Kellerman.
Sanctions enforcement is one of the key topics for Secretary Blinken on a trip through Central Asia. While in Kazakhstan, he told reporters that the U.S. has been giving companies time to wind down their relationships with Russian firms that are on U.S. blacklists. He also had a message for China.
China can't have it both ways when it comes to the Russian aggression in Ukraine. It can't be putting forward peace proposals on the one hand, while actually feeding the flames of the fire that Russia has started with the other hand.
Blinken says the U.S. believes China is considering sending lethal support to Russia that could be used in the war in Ukraine. Michelle Kellerman, NPR News, the State Department.
The U.S. Marshals Service says hackers broke into one of its systems and stole data in a cyber attack. NPR's Denny McLaughlin reports the data included personal details about employees and targets of ongoing investigations.
The oldest federal law enforcement agency in the United States is the latest victim of a ransomware attack. A U.S. Marshals Service spokesman says the breach is contained to an isolated computer system. While the hackers obtained some information about the operations of the Federal Witness Protection Program, for example, none of the personal details about people enrolled in the program were stolen. The Justice Department is investigating the origins of what is being described as a major incident. Government agencies are often valuable targets for foreign espionage. Jenna McLaughlin, NPR News.
Stocks bounced around before closing mostly lower on the final trading day of the month. The Dow Jones Industrial Average was down 232 points to 32,656. The Nasdaq closed down 11 points. The Standard & Poor's 500 was down 12 points today. You're listening to NPR. An attack by what the Kremlin says were Ukrainian drones appears to have shown some holes in Russia's defenses, with one drone getting within about 60 miles of Moscow. Russian leader Vladimir Putin ordered stepped-up protection at the border. Officials say the drones caused no significant injuries or damage, but did raise questions about Russian defense capabilities. More than a year after Russia launched its invasion of Ukraine, Ukrainian officials did not immediately claim responsibility for the drone incursion. The state of Texas says no more men are on hunger strikes in the state's prisons. Texas Public Radio's Paul Flabb has the story.
For the first time in 7 weeks, officials at the Texas Department of Criminal Justice report 0 men are on hunger strike in the state's prisons. Men have been striking to protest their treatment in solitary confinement, calling for an end to the practice the UN had described as inhumane. Last week, 10 men, all at one unit, were still refusing food, down from 72 across multiple prisons when the hunger strike began. This was at least the second strike in 2 years at the facilities. It's not immediately clear what, if any, changes might be made to Texas solitary confinement practices in the future. I'm Paul Flabb in San Antonio.
Should the moon have its own time zone? With a plethora of planned lunar missions on the calendar, the European Space Agency apparently thinks so. The idea was first raised at a meeting in the Netherlands last year, with participants agreeing on the need to establish a common lunar reference time. For now, moon missions run on the time of the country operating the spacecraft. Some experts say a common lunar time zone make it easier for astronauts working there one day. I'm Jack Speer, NPR News in Washington.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Heather Sturt-Haga and Paul G. Haga, supporting African Wildlife Foundation, working to ensure the future of Africa's wildlife and wildlands. Learn more at awf.org.
Support for the world comes from NRC Health, with a reminder that people are so much more than aggregated data.
That's a part of what I do.
Leverage the power of
Press
human
those buttons,
understanding to
ride
connect
those
more
levels,
deeply and restore the depth
do
of the
what
patient-provider
I do.
relationship. More at nrchealth.com.